Sometimes you need strategies and tips to help you deal with your situation, but other times all you need is just to be understood for a second and to be reminded that you're not alone in what you're dealing with. Hey guys, this is Evie, and this video is not meant to teach you anything. It's meant to give you a little break and remind you that we are not all that different. And I'm not saying this as a wishful thinking. I'm saying it as somebody who was doing research in psychology, and I understand how hard it is actually to find differences between people. Your individual experience with ADHD may be slightly different, but I think all of us have things in common, and I'm gonna go over through some of my crazy brain things, and I would like to hear yours as well. So if you're watching this and you want to share, leave a comment. Craziness number one is, if you are talking to me, I'm gonna try to keep eye contact with you the whole time, so I do my best to stay focused on what you are talking about. However, the moment I have to say something, I'm gonna be like this because I need to like zoom out from anything around me and try to catch that one thought that I'm trying to explain to you without mentioning the other five that just came to my mind. And also, I will try my best to slow down when I speak for the sake of you understanding me. However, it is like a game you play with your brain because this is happening super quickly and you fear that if you don't say your thoughts quick enough, you'll forget them or you get distracted, but you understand the other person needs the time to understand. So it's like a constant game with speed that you're playing when you're talking, and you cannot explain it to another human being because they have a different brain speed than you. And ideally, what you'd like to happen in a conversation is to have a speed up button to people who talk slower and repeat themselves a lot, because on one hand you do want to listen and they're still interesting to you, care about them, but the way they speak and how repetitive they could be just makes it nearly impossible for you to follow. And when it's finally your turn to speak, you go super crazy with your speech because you have been so patiently waiting for your time to speak that now when it's finally your moment, you want to use it and you are overwhelming them by just being you. Crazy thing number two is that we absolutely benefit from routine because this is a chaos, and the more routine we have and the more things are organized, the better. But at the same time, we need a challenge. We need something to be kind of keeping us on our toes because we sort of go through life very often. Most of the ADHD people go through life with their foot on the gas, and it's hard to find the middle balance between what you need and benefit from and what actually you thrive on. I hear my words and I hear the controversy. However, it is a life to live when you have an ADHD brain, that you are very often going from one extreme to another and you could appear very contradicting, but it makes sense to you. So one time I'm talking with my psychiatrist and she goes, all right, Evie, I can see how you sort of change countries every 2 to 3 years. You go somewhere, you don't know anything and anybody, you get through the whole hassle of, getting comfortable, adapting, learning a bit the language, getting the bank account, registration, all the administrative things, finding a social environment. And when things get more settled and stable, you go to another country. And I'm like, yeah, that has been a thing for the past 10, 11 years now. And she goes, do you take your medication during that time? And I'm like, no, okay, so that's the whole thing with like, she's a psychiatrist, so she looks at the brain as an organ that needs medication. I'm a psychologist, I look at the brain as a tool that needs strategies and tips. Truth is somewhere in the middle, but we just have this like difference, let's say. And I'm like, yeah, that is correct. I'm not taking my medication during that time, not consistently at least. And she goes, okay, well, as a psychologist, describe me an ADHD person without at all mentioning focus and attention. And I already know where she's going with that, but I still say, yeah, well, it's a person who gets bored easily, needs stimulation, needs a challenge, usually is low on dopamine. So it's not like they cannot control their impulse, they don't really want to because they kind of want the excitement of the impulses. And she goes, yeah, okay, so do you think you would have had much more stable environment if you were to take your medication regularly? And I go, yeah, I think so. I understand how part of my behavior obviously is due to me having those symptoms. And the question here is that a good or a bad thing? And that's a question you can answer for yourself. Because for me, having that kind of crazy life was okay. I don't regret it. So it's really about all right, you're gonna be this way and you have pros and cons, or you're gonna be that way and there are other pros and cons. So it's really a personal decision. I do not want to recommend not taking or taking medication, but when you have an ADHD brain, you always have to choose between being yourself and feeling kind of numb when you're on the pills, because when you do take Adderall, whatever you're taking, you are a different person. And that different person might suit you better, but it's a decision. And I think every now and then you reevaluate it and probably switch around between the two options. And talking about switching between options, when you have ADHD brain, your issue is not about not having enough ideas what to do, it's about having too many ideas what to do. For example, a new study has suggested that Leonardo da Vinci's famous productivity and tendency not to finish his creative projects could actually be explained by ADHD, because ADHD people have 1,000 of ideas. They want to start all of them because they all sound cool, but we usually don't finish more than a few. And this brings me to another controversy with ADHD. We have this okay, very distracted mind that goes all over the place. However, some people also have the hyperfocus. And there's some studies on this, and they suggest that the hyperfocus kind of looks like a flow state, but it's not exactly, because the hyperfocus is not necessarily functional. What do I mean? Sometimes you are supposed to work on a task that has a couple of steps, and you may get preoccupied with this one step and get into a rabbit hole of researching every single little thing of it. And you can spend 3 hours on the design of your presentation when that was not even the point of your task, because you got into hyperfocus. And if somebody observes you during that time, they'll be like, how is that person even ADHD? Like, they've been like this on their computer for like 3 hours now. I mean, you're not really like sitting there. You usually have something to play with, and you're like moving your feet, and just something is moving in your body, but your mind looks like you have tunnel vision with that one thing. And you feel like this is not supposed to be you if you have ADHD, but it is part of you as well. For some people, absolutely. And now I'm not gonna stop playing with this because I got it, and it's... Finally, ADHD people can find it difficult to be in a relationship that is actually healthy, because a healthy relationship is more or less peaceful, predictable. You have security, you have stability. An ADHD brain, again, thrives on challenges. So it's very important for ADHD people to receive what they need somehow through a hobby or a job, so that they can be okay and satisfied with a peaceful, healthy relationship. And I know this kind of sounds toxic, but it's not about being negative or like confrontational. It's more about that we seek different activities, different hobbies, just different things to do, and we expect our partner also to want to do stuff, and when they don't, we kind of like, you know. Well, if you know, you know. Final thing is that I wish I could have Notion in my head. Notion is like a software that absolutely saves lives. But I would like to have Notion in my head where I could like use different categories for my thoughts, save them, be okay with not expressing all of them because they're saved, and kind of being able to pull them back whenever I need them instead of forgetting them all the time. And to me, this is super obvious thing. Who wouldn't like to have departments and categorizations in their own heads? But when I share it with people who don't have ADHD, they look at me and they're like, I've never thought about this. I've never wished for that. And I'm like, oh, so it's just me then? And this is actually the entire purpose of that video. I want anybody who watches this to see one of these crazy things or stupid things and be like, I'm not just alone in that. Somebody else is like that. And that is really, to me, giving some comfort, peace, and it's fine. Like, we're all weird in different ways, but we do have common weirdness, and it's nice when we share it. So thank you for watching. Leave me a comment with what relates to you and what is your craziness, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.